The stars looked the same as they always did to Lily Garrett. She sat at her desk at the NASA Observatory, eyes tired from staring at screens all night. But something was different today. The signal pattern on her monitor didn't match anything in their database. "Ellen, can you look at this?" she called to her colleague. Alan Porter pushed his chair across the room and squinted at her screen. His coffee mug nearly spilled as he set it down too quickly. "That's not random noise," he said, suddenly wide awake. "Those are patterns, regular patterns." Lily nodded, "And they're coming from just beyond Saturn's orbit. Whatever it is, it's in our solar system." They worked through the night, analyzing the strange signals. By morning, they were sure. These weren't natural cosmic sounds. They were communications. 3 days later, Commander Frank Miller walked into the Pentagon briefing room. The Joint Chiefs looked tense as they motioned for him to sit. "Commander, we're forming a task force," General Williams said. "Those signals Dr. Garrett discovered. They're getting stronger, and now we have visual confirmation. Ships, Commander. Not ours. Not Russian. Not Chinese." Frank looked at the satellite images spread across the table. The objects were sleek, metallic, and clearly not built by human hands. "How many?" he asked. 7 large vessels and at least 24 smaller craft," the general replied. "They'll reach Earth orbit in approximately 48 hours. On the other side of the galaxy, Grand Commander Zalthus addressed the Zephyri High Council. His gray skin shimmered under the council chamber lights, vertical pupils narrowing with excitement. "The third planet is rich in resources," he said. "The dominant species has basic technology, primitive nuclear weapons, rudimentary space travel, and simple computing systems. They will not pose a significant challenge." Council member Vexus raised a clawed hand. "Have they achieved unified planetary government?" "No," Zalthus replied with a dismissive gesture. "They remain divided into nearly 200 separate territories they call nations. They still fight among themselves over resources. Then conquest should be simple," Vexus concluded. Back on Earth, Lily and Alan worked with military analysts to decode the alien communications. Progress was slow but steady. "They're talking about Earth," Lily said, pointing to a sequence they had partially translated. "These symbols refer to our planet, and these appear to be some kind of assessment." Alan frowned. "Not a friendly one, from what I can tell." At his home in Ohio, Pete Johnson tinkered with radio equipment in his garage. The retired engineer had built a powerful receiver as a hobby. Tonight, strange sounds came through his headphones. He adjusted dials and filters, recording everything. "Martha," he called to his wife, "I think I'm picking up something weird." His wife poked her head into the garage. "Aliens again, Pete," she said with a smile. "Maybe this time it's real," he muttered, not looking up from his equipment. The Zephyri fleet entered Earth orbit quietly, positioning ships strategically around the planet. Earth's military satellites detected them, but couldn't lock on. The alien vessels seemed to bend radar around them. In the White House Situation Room, President Diane Crawford received the news with a calm she didn't feel. "What are our options?" she asked. "Limited, Madam President," the Secretary of Defense admitted. "We don't know their capabilities, but their technology is clearly advanced beyond ours." On the Zephyri command ship, Grand Commander Zalthus prepared his message. The humans would be given a chance to surrender before the conquest began. Standard procedure for all Zephyri acquisitions. "Send the transmission to all their communication networks," he ordered. Across Earth, televisions, radios, phones, and computers suddenly displayed the same image. A tall, gray-skinned figure with large eyes and a lipless mouth. "People of Earth," the translation scrolled beneath the alien face. "I am Grand Commander Xalthus of the Zephyri Dominion. Your planet is now under our protection and control. You have 48 hours to disarm your military forces and prepare for Zephyri governance. Resistance will be met with force. Compliance will be rewarded. In homes, offices, and on streets around the world. Humans stared at screens in shock. The impossible had happened. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and their first visitors had come to conquer. Panic spread across Earth in the hours after the alien message. People rushed to stores for supplies. Some fled cities. Others gathered in churches, mosques, and temples to pray. At the United Nations in New York, an emergency session began. World leaders and their representatives filled the large room. Many looked like they hadn't slept. "We have less than 48 hours to decide," said the Secretary General. "Do we fight or surrender?" The Russian ambassador stood first. Their ships hover over Moscow, Beijing, Washington, and every major city. What chance do we have against such technology? "We cannot simply give up our planet," the British ambassador countered. "Surrender may mean slavery or worse." President Crawford addressed the assembly via video link. Her face was stern but calm. "The United States will not surrender to threats," she said. "We know nothing about these Zephyri, except that they came uninvited and demanded our submission. History teaches us that appeasing invaders only encourages them." The debate continued for hours. Some nations favored immediate surrender. Others called for unified resistance. No consensus emerged. Meanwhile, in a secure underground facility near Washington, D.C., Commander Frank Miller gathered scientists and military experts. Lily Garrett and Alan Porter had been flown in by military helicopter. "What do we know about their technology?" Frank asked. Lily pointed to images on a large screen. "Their ships use some kind of energy field we don't understand, but they're communicating on frequencies we can detect. We're working to decode more of their language." "Any weaknesses?" Frank pressed. "Not yet," Alan admitted. "But they're biological beings, not machines. All biological beings have vulnerabilities." In Ohio, Pete Johnson hadn't slept. His garage had become a mess of wires, computers, and radio equipment. He recorded every alien transmission he could catch, trying to make sense of the strange sounds and patterns. "Martha, look at this," he said to his wife, who brought him a sandwich. On his computer screen, a pattern repeated. The same signal burst every 7 minutes. "It's like a heartbeat," he said. "I think it's how their ships talk to each other." Martha looked worried. "Shouldn't you tell someone?" Pete nodded. "I tried calling the police and the army. They think I'm crazy. Everyone's too busy panicking." On the Zephyri command ship, Grand Commander Xalthus reviewed the human responses. Their primitive communication networks were easy to monitor. "They argue among themselves," he told his officers. "Some wish to fight, others to surrender. Their division makes them weak." His second-in-command, Officer Xerix, looked less certain. "Commander, our scouts report they have over 5,000 nuclear weapons. Even with our shields, a coordinated strike could damage our fleet." Xalthus dismissed the concern. They would destroy their own cities in the process. These humans value individual life too highly for such sacrifice. Around the world, military forces mobilized despite the alien warning. Fighter jets patrolled the skies below the alien ships. Missile systems were prepared. Soldiers took positions in cities. President Crawford met with her military advisors in the bunker beneath the White House. "What options do we have?" she asked. General Williams spread a map on the table. "We've been developing electromagnetic pulse weapons that might penetrate their shields. If we coordinate with other nations, we could launch a simultaneous attack." "Casualties?" the president asked. "Unknown," the general admitted, "but less than if we surrender to unknown alien intentions." President Crawford nodded grimly. "Contact every allied nation. We need full coordination." In the United Nations building, the debate had turned heated. The Chinese representative stood up. "China proposes a middle path," he announced. "We request communication with these aliens. We ask for their terms before deciding on surrender or resistance." The proposal gained immediate support. A committee was formed to draft a response to the Zephyri. In Pete Johnson's garage, a new transmission caught his attention. Different from the others, this one contained images. As they appeared on his screen, Pete gasped. They were blueprints of Earth's major cities, with certain buildings marked. Military bases, power plants, water facilities. They're planning their attack, he whispered. And we have less than 24 hours left. The clock ticked down. Less than 24 hours remained before the Zephyri deadline. In military bases across the world, soldiers prepared for a fight many thought they couldn't win. Pete Johnson drove fast through the night, his wife Martha beside him. His laptop and hard drives with the alien transmission data sat in the back seat. The Army base is 30 miles away, Martha said, checking the map on her phone. Are you sure they'll listen? They have to, Pete replied. Those blueprints I found show the aliens plan to hit power stations first. They want to leave us in the dark before they attack. At the NASA facility, Lily Garrett hadn't left her workstation in 18 hours. Ellen brought her coffee and a sandwich. You need to eat, he insisted. Lily took a bite and kept working. I think I found something. Look at these elements they mentioned in their transmissions. She pointed to symbols they had decoded. They talk a lot about oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, analyzing our atmosphere. But they keep flagging this one element as dangerous. Manganese? Alan asked, looking at the highlighted symbol. Yes, they mention special filters and protective measures around it. I think they're allergic to it or sensitive to it somehow. Alan's eyes widened. Manganese is everywhere on Earth. It's in our soil, water, even in our bodies in small amounts. Exactly, Lily said. And when oxidized into manganese dioxide, it's used in everyday items. Batteries, air purifiers, even some fertilizers. She reached for her phone. I need to call Commander Miller right away. At the White House, President Crawford received the UN committee's decision. The committee had sent a message to the Zephyri requesting dialogue, but received a cold response. Submit or face consequences. It seems diplomacy is not an option, she told her advisors. General Williams, are our forces ready? As ready as they can be, Madam President. We've coordinated with 27 countries so far. The EMP weapons are in position, but we don't know if they'll work. And the civilian evacuations? In progress, but there's not enough time. Major cities are in chaos. The president looked at the countdown clock on the wall. 21 hours left. Authorize the attack plan, she said quietly, but keep looking for alternatives. On the Zephyri command ship, Grand Commander Xalthus reviewed final invasion plans. His officers moved efficiently around the bridge, preparing for what they expected to be an easy conquest. Officer Xerix approached. Commander, our sensors detect unusual movements. Human military forces are not standing down. They appear to be preparing defense systems. Xalthus made a gesture of dismissal. They posture to save face before surrendering. Their weapons cannot harm our ships. There is something else, Xerix continued. Their scientists have been analyzing our communications. Security protocols may be compromised. Xalthus stood straighter, his gray skin darkening with anger. Impossible. Their primitive technology cannot decode our transmissions. Evidence suggests otherwise. Xerix insisted. I recommend we move up the timetable. Attack now before they learn more. Xalthus considered this. Prepare the first wave. We will strike their military bases at once. At the Army base, Pete Johnson finally found someone to listen. Amy Johnson, his daughter, and a communications specialist, brought her father's findings to her commanding officer. Sir, my father intercepted these alien transmissions. They show attack plans and reveal a pattern in their ship communications. The officer studied the data. This encryption pattern, it repeats predictably. If this is right, we might be able to jam their communications. He picked up the secure phone. Get me Commander Miller. Priority Alpha. In the NASA lab, Lily and Alan worked with military chemists to create a weapon based on their discovery. They mixed compounds in a sealed chamber, testing different formulations. If we can aerosolize manganese dioxide in the right particle size, Lily explained, it could disable the Zephyri when they try to land. It won't affect humans. How do we deploy it? Asked a military scientist. Everything from crop dusters to missile warheads. Alan said, we need to saturate the air around their ships and landing sites. A technician burst into the lab. Turn on the news. The aliens, they're attacking early. On screens around the world, people watched as Zephyri ships fired energy beams at military bases. The deadline had been a lie. The invasion of Earth had begun. The world watched in horror as Zephyri ships fired upon military bases. Bright blue energy beams cut through buildings and aircraft. Explosions lit up the sky. From the International Space Station, Commander Susan Wells and her crew had a terrifying view of the attack. The station orbited Earth high above the conflict. Houston, are you receiving our video feed? Susan called over the radio. Affirmative, Commander, came the tense reply. Keep recording. Your position gives us vital intelligence. Susan looked at her crew. The aliens don't seem to notice us. We're going to convert the research module into an observation post. We can track their ship movements and relay the information to Earth. At the Pentagon, chaos erupted as reports of attacks flooded in. Commander Frank Miller struggled to coordinate a response as communication systems failed across multiple bases. An officer rushed in with a secure tablet. Sir, we just received data from Pete Johnson. His daughter got it to us. It shows how the alien ships communicate with each other. Frank studied the encryption pattern. It was complex, but had a clear rhythm, repeating every 7 minutes exactly. Get this to our cyber team immediately, he ordered. If we can disrupt their communications, we might buy ourselves time. At NASA, Lily and Alan loaded their manganese compound into portable sprayers. Military trucks waited outside to transport their makeshift weapons. Will this really work? A soldier asked as they loaded the equipment. In theory, yes, Lily answered. The manganese dioxide should cause severe respiratory distress in the Zephyri. According to their own communications, they can't process it like we can. And it won't hurt humans. No more than breathing near a battery factory. Just wear the masks we provided as a precaution. The first Zephyri ground troops landed near a military base in Colorado. They moved with eerie grace, their gray bodies protected by shimmering energy shields. Their weapons fired the same blue energy as their ships. American soldiers fought back with conventional weapons. Most bullets bounced off the alien shields, but concentrated fire could eventually break through. The humans suffered heavy losses, but managed to down several Zephyri. In the White House bunker, President Crawford received the first battle reports. They're strong, but not invincible, General Williams said. Their personal shields can be overwhelmed, and their ships aren't targeting civilian areas yet. They're focusing on military targets. What about our EMP weapons? The president asked. Ready to deploy, but we need to time it perfectly. If we miss, they'll know our capability. A communications officer interrupted. Madam President, Commander Miller reports they're attempting to hack the alien communication system. They need 10 more minutes. Aboard the Zephyri command ship, Grand Commander Xalthus received concerning news. The humans resist more effectively than anticipated. Officer Xerix reported. They have already destroyed 7 ground units and damaged 2 support craft. Impossible, Xalthus hissed. Their weapons are primitive. They adapt quickly, and some of our landing parties report strange respiratory symptoms after exposure to the atmosphere. Increase shield strength and continue the attack, Xalthus ordered. Send in the second wave. At the Cyber Command Center, military hackers worked frantically to break into the alien network. Pete Johnson sat among them, guiding their efforts based on the patterns he discovered. There, he pointed at a screen. That's the master control sequence. If we can insert our code there, we can disrupt their entire fleet for a short time. The lead hacker nodded. Uploading virus now. Across the battlefield, The first trucks carrying Lily's manganese compound arrived. Soldiers loaded the mixture into smoke grenades and crop dusting equipment. "Deploy on my mark," ordered the field commander. "Target their landing zones and entry points." In orbit, Commander Susan Wells spotted a pattern in the alien fleet movements. "Houston, the ships are moving in a defensive formation. There's a gap in their coverage over the Pacific. If you're planning something big, that's your window." President Crawford gave the order. "Execute the EMP strike and deploy the manganese weapons immediately after." Around the world, hidden EMP platforms activated. At the same moment, the military cyber attack hit the Zephyri network. For one crucial moment, the alien ships froze in the sky as their systems rebooted. Their shields flickered and failed. The world held its breath as humanity launched its counterattack. For 3 seconds, the Zephyri ships hung motionless in the sky. Their lights dimmed and their shields vanished. In that brief window, militaries around the world fired everything they had. Missiles streaked upward. Fighter jets launched attacks. The EMP weapons sent pulses of energy that scrambled the alien systems. On the ground, soldiers deployed Lily's manganese compound. Smoke grenades released clouds of fine particles. Crop dusters sprayed fields around landing zones. The wind carried the invisible weapon toward the Zephyri troops. The aliens' response was immediate and terrible. Those who breathed the compound began to choke. Their gray skin turned purple as they struggled for air. Some managed to return to their ships, but that only spread the compound through their ventilation systems. On the Zephyri command ship, alarms blared. Grand Commander Xalthus watched in disbelief as screens showed his forces falling. "What is happening?" he demanded. Officer Xerix checked readings from the surface. "Some kind of airborne toxin. Our filters cannot remove it, and our main systems are under cyber attack." "Impossible." Xalthus slammed his fist on the control panel. "These primitives cannot defeat our technology." "The evidence suggests otherwise." "Commander," Xerix said quietly, "I recommend immediate withdrawal and regrouping." Xalthus glared at his second-in-command. "We do not retreat. Send the reserve fleet from Mars orbit. We will crush this resistance with overwhelming force." In the Pentagon, Commander Frank Miller received reports from the battlefield. "It's working," he told the president over a secure line. "The manganese compound is devastating their ground forces, and our EMP weapons damaged nearly 30% of their fleet." "What about civilian casualties?" President Crawford asked. "Minimal so far. They focused on military targets, and our evacuation efforts saved many lives." In Pete Johnson's garage, now converted into an emergency communications hub, local engineers worked with military technicians. They had connected Pete's equipment to larger systems, expanding their ability to monitor alien transmissions. "They're calling for backup," Pete said, listening through headphones. "There's another fleet near Mars." His daughter Amy nodded. "I'll relay that to command. Keep listening." Martha brought coffee to the tired workers. "The neighbors brought food," she said. "The whole block is helping however they can." Around the world, people united against the common threat. Former enemies shared military resources. Scientists collaborated across borders. Civilians organized support networks, from medical aid to food distribution. In the NASA lab, Lily and Alan monitored the effectiveness of their compound. Reports show 87% effectiveness against Zephyri biology. Alan said, reading from a tablet. "But they're adapting. Some ships have improved their filtration systems." Lily nodded. "We need a stronger version, something their filters can't catch." They worked frantically, testing new formulations. Aboard the International Space Station, Commander Susan Wells noticed new activity. "Houston, we have movement beyond lunar orbit," she reported. "A second wave of alien ships is approaching from Mars direction. At least twice the number as the first fleet." On Earth, the first glimpse of victory began to fade. Despite successful counterattacks, the humans knew they couldn't withstand a larger invasion force. In the White House bunker, President Crawford met with her crisis team. "Options?" she asked simply. "We've depleted most of our EMP weapons," General Williams said. "The manganese compound works, but they're developing countermeasures. If the second wave is truly twice the size, we don't have the resources to fight them the same way." The room fell silent. Then a communications officer spoke up. "Madam President, we're detecting a new energy signature. 3 massive objects just appeared at the edge of our solar system." "More Zephyri?" the President asked. "No," the officer replied, checking readings. "These are different, much larger, and they're moving incredibly fast." On screens around the room, 3 enormous ships appeared, unlike anything they had seen before. They'd bypassed Earth completely and headed straight for the approaching Zephyri reinforcements. "What are they doing?" someone whispered. They watched as the mysterious ships surrounded the Zephyri fleet. There were no explosions, no visible weapons fire. The Zephyri ships simply stopped moving. In orbit, the first wave of Zephyri vessels suddenly broke off their attack. Their weapons powered down. "Someone else has entered the game," Commander Miller said. The mysterious ships were unlike anything humans had seen before. They glowed with soft blue light and moved with impossible grace. Within minutes, they had completely surrounded the Zephyri reinforcement fleet. On Earth, military leaders, scientists, and civilian observers watched in stunned silence. "Are they attacking each other?" President Crawford asked. "No weapons fire detected," replied a military analyst. "It appears to be some kind of containment." In orbit, the first wave of Zephyri ships began retreating, pulling back from Earth's atmosphere. Their attack had suddenly stopped. On the Zephyri command ship, Grand Commander Xalthus received a transmission that made his blood run cold. "The Galactic Council," he whispered, recognizing the signature. "They were not supposed to be in this sector." Officer Xerix looked alarmed. "Commander, we must cease operations immediately. Council intervention means—" "I know what it means," Xalthus snapped. "We violated their non-interference directive." A new voice filled the bridge, speaking in perfect Zephyri language, but with an otherworldly quality. "Grand Commander Xalthus of the Zephyri Dominion. This is Ambassador Ilara of the Lumidian species, representing the Galactic Council. Your actions constitute a severe violation of Council law. Stand down immediately and prepare for boarding." At the United Nations building, where world leaders had gathered to coordinate humanity's defense, a sudden brightness filled the General Assembly Hall. A figure appeared in the center of the room. Tall, slender, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer with inner light. Security personnel raised their weapons, but the figure raised a hand in a peaceful gesture. "People of Earth," said the being in perfect English, "I am Ambassador Ilara of the Lumidian species and representative of the Galactic Council. We have stopped the Zephyri invasion of your world." Murmurs filled the room. The Secretary General stepped forward. "We thank you for your intervention," he said cautiously. "But who is this Galactic Council? And why have you come now, not before the attack began?" Ambassador Ilara's expression showed what might have been regret. "The Galactic Council oversees peace among spacefaring civilizations in this sector of the galaxy. Earth has been classified as a pre-contact world, under our protection but not yet ready for full galactic integration." She paused. "The Zephyri violated our most sacred law by attempting to conquer your planet. We did not detect their actions until it was nearly too late. For that, we apologize." In the White House Situation Room, President Crawford watched the UN broadcast with her advisors. "Can we trust them?" she asked. "They stopped the invasion," Commander Miller pointed out, "but their technology is even more advanced than the Zephyri. If they wanted to harm us, they could have let the Zephyri do it." Lily Garrett finished. She had been brought to the White House to explain her manganese discovery. In space, the Galactic Council ships escorted the Zephyri fleet away from Earth. One Council vessel remained in orbit, a silent guardian. At the UN, Ambassador Ilara continued her explanation. The Council has observed Earth for centuries. Your species has been controversial among our members. Some admire your creativity and resilience. Others fear your capacity for warfare and environmental damage. A French diplomat stood. And which view do you hold, Ambassador? I have always advocated for Earth's potential, Ilara replied. Today, you proved me right. No species has ever successfully repelled a Zephyri invasion force, especially with your level of technology. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Council must now reevaluate Earth's status. Ilara continued. I have been authorized to invite a small delegation to our station to discuss your world's future role in galactic affairs. In Pete Johnson's garage-turned-command center, he and his family watched the broadcast in amazement. Did we just get invited to join some kind of space United Nations? Martha asked. I think we did, Pete replied, shaking his head in wonder. And all because we fought back instead of surrendering. Around the world, the news spread. The invasion was over. Earth had not only survived but earned the respect of advanced civilizations. A new chapter in human history had begun, one that would take humanity to the stars not as conquerors or victims, but as equals. 1 week after the invasion, a small Earth delegation prepared to visit the Galactic Council station. President Crawford had chosen a mix of people. Commander Frank Miller for military perspective, Dr. Lily Garrett for scientific knowledge, and Pete Johnson, whose radio hobby had helped save the planet. They gathered at a military base in Nevada, where a council shuttle would pick them up. I never thought I'd be going to space, Pete said, adjusting his new uniform. Martha made me pack extra socks. Lily smiled nervously. I have so many questions for them. Their technology, their biology, their science. Remember our mission, Commander Miller reminded them. We're representing all of Earth. We need to understand the Council's intentions and how this changes humanity's future. President Crawford addressed them before departure. You carry the hopes of our entire planet. Show them that humanity deserves a place among the stars. The Council shuttle arrived silently, hovering above the desert floor. It had no visible engines or wings. A door opened in its smooth side, and Ambassador Ilara stepped out. Welcome, friends, she said. Are you ready to make history? The journey took only 20 minutes. Earth shrank below them, became a blue marble, and then disappeared as they traveled faster than any human had gone before. The Council station was enormous. A massive ring structure floating in space near Jupiter. Hundreds of different ships docked along its outer edge. Inside, aliens of many species moved through wide corridors. There are over 400 species represented here, Ilara explained as they walked. Some breathe different air, some see different light, some communicate in ways you would find strange. But all live by the Council's laws of peace and cooperation. She led them to a massive chamber where representatives from dozens of worlds sat in rising tiers of seats. In the center was an empty area where the Earth delegation would speak. Grand Commander Zalthus stood there, flanked by Council security. His once proud posture was now hunched in defeat. The emergency session of the Galactic Council will now begin, announced a tall, crystalline being. We gather to address the violation of Council Directive 5, the protection of pre-contact worlds, by the Zephyri Dominion. Zalthus spoke in his defense. Earth appeared primitive. Their technology suggested they were not ready for contact. Yet they defeated your invasion force, the crystalline being noted, using creativity and adaptation rather than advanced technology. Evidence was presented, logs from Zephyri ships, recordings of the battle, reports from Council observers. The Earth delegation watched in amazement as the Galactic Council debated their planet's fate without fully understanding that Earth had been a topic of discussion for centuries. Finally, Ambassador Ilara invited them to speak. Commander Miller described Earth's military response. Lily explained the scientific breakthrough with manganese. Pete shared how ordinary citizens had contributed to the defense. We fought because we had to. President Crawford's recorded message played. But we prefer peace. Earth has many cultures, languages, and beliefs. We have fought each other too often. Perhaps meeting the wider galaxy will help unite us. The council deliberated privately. When they returned, the crystalline being announced their decision. The Zephyri Dominion is found guilty of violating council law. Their application for council membership is suspended for 100 years. Murmurs filled the chamber. As for Earth, the being continued. The council acknowledges that circumstances have forced premature contact. Having demonstrated remarkable resourcefulness and unity in the face of invasion, Earth will be granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council, the first such offer to a planet that has not yet developed faster than light travel. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives seemed pleased, others concerned. As the Earth delegation left the chamber, Ambassador Ilara explained, "This is unprecedented. Some council members have watched your planet for generations. Many feared your warlike tendencies. Others admired your art, music, and creativity. And now," Layli asked, "now you have earned something rare, respect." Ilara replied, "Your species faced a technologically superior invader and prevailed through ingenuity and cooperation. That has changed many minds." Back on Earth, crowds gathered around screens displaying the first images from the council station. Humanity looked to the stars with new understanding. They were not alone, not helpless, and not unwelcome. The universe was vast and filled with wonders. And now, against all odds, humanity had taken its first steps into a much larger community.